And back here, the Clinton Global Initiative, what happened on Wall Street doesn't always stay on Wall Street. A lesson we learned this past year when Iceland was one of the countries hardest hit by the financial crisis. $80 billion in debt toppled three banks that made up 85% of Iceland's banking sector. Now, the island nation's economy has contracted about 7% this year, and the country has had to take emergency financing from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. But there are now some signs of a gradual recovery, and joining me now is the President of Iceland, Olafur Ragnar Grimsson. And thank you so much. It's an honor to have you with us.
No, thank you very much.
Okay, how confident are you that Iceland is on the path to recovery?
Oh, I'm very confident, because the last 6 to 8 months have turned out to be much better than we expected last fall. There have been less unemployment, and the resource-driven sectors of the economy, the clean energy sector, which of course is very prominent in Iceland, the fishing sector, the tourism, but also the IT sector in an interesting way, have turned out to be very strong, driven perhaps by the devaluation of the currency.
Right.
So, in fact, we are seeing that the more classical resource-based economy is able to recover and counterbalance what was created by the banks. But of course, there are many people, families, companies that are still facing great difficulty.
Right, and the country itself, though, I mean, all of this is still happening at a time when you're carrying huge debt loads, and I believe something to the tune of 240% of GDP. Now, your finance minister was recently quoted as saying you're not heading towards bankruptcy, but how do you get those debt levels down, though?
No, that figure is not really the right figure to go by. I mean, it all depends how you calculate also the debt within Iceland and so on and so forth, and with respect to the rest of the world.
But what do you think?
But the bottom line is simply this: Iceland is not heading for bankruptcy, that the country is very strong. We are seeing foreign companies wanting to invest in Iceland. We are seeing the unemployment less than before. And paradoxically, in a way, this has enabled us to redirect the economy from the bubble of the international financial market, admittedly learning some tough lessons that we are willing to share with the world.
Right.
And some of those lessons are that we need some much stronger international cooperation and even stronger regulatory efforts all over the world. But we are also learning the lesson that real production based on engineering, initiative, talent, creative forces is really a very strong current that can bring an economy back much quicker than most people expect.
We don't have a whole lot of time, so I do want to get to this issue, though, the IMF bailout. I believe they offered about $5.1 billion. They haven't dispersed only, I think, 1/5 of that so far. They're looking, though, at this case between Iceland and the UK and Netherlands about deposits that were that basically failed during the time of the banking collapse. When do you expect resolution on this? And do you expect the IMF to release more funds?
Well, we expect that to happen soon. We have had this difficulty with Britain and the Netherlands due to one of the three major banks that collapsed. It's worth remembering that with respect to the other two and their operation in Britain, Germany and Nordic countries and elsewhere, that has all been solved without any debt being carried by the Icelandic people. But paradoxically, although the IMF has delayed dealing with Iceland for many, many months, the economy at the same time has been regaining formidable strength. So you even have people in my country which are now asking the question, do you really need the second part of the IMF program?
And also, do you really need to be in the EU? But in any case, I've got to leave it there because I'm out of time. But thank you so much, President Grimsson from Iceland.